It has been a little while, and I have some new decks. So I wanted to do another interview. Um, I've got quite a few since the last time. So I think I just want to start with the biggest one. So let's see what we've got. All right, so let's start with the majors. The Fool, Magician, the High Priestess. I really like the colors in this one. The Empress, I really don't know how to feel about, but there it is. The Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers. I find it funny that it is a pair of frogs. Frogs and amplexus are super common sight in the spring, so I enjoy that. The Chariot, Strength. I do like that it's a goose and a lion instead of like a woman and a lion, or maybe a swan. Black Masks, it's a swan. I think the imagery is a little bit different. The Hermit, using the rabbit as, or the hare as a hermit is a little interesting, and I kind of like that. And then we have the moon. Hares in the moon are common imagery. Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man. I haven't quite figured out why the Hanged Man is a werewolf, but there he is. Death. I really like this one. I like the pops of color in it. Temperance. The Devil. I like that it's like an Oni mask on a woman. It's kind of interesting. The Tower. I really do like that the tower is a lighthouse with the waves crashing at the shore. I find this to be a really simple change, but an effective one. The Star. More women with animal heads. It's a theme you're going to see recurring. The Moon is fairly similar to the RWS moon, with wolves, pillars, the moon, and a lobster. The Sun, sunflower and a rabbit, pretty standard imagery for joy and the sun. Judgment, and the World. So those are the majors. I think my favorite ones are probably the Tower and I like the Devil. Bring her up, give you a little closer view. So there's the Devil. And I'll show you the Tower close up as well. So there's the Tower. Focus one more time. So there's the Tower there. And then those are probably my two favorites out of the majors. So let's go on to the refocus down here. Start with the waters. So we'll start with the cups. So there's our Ace of Cups there. Pop it up a little bit so you can make sure you see it. Ace of Cups. The Two of Cups, like I said, that's the image that made me buy these cards. I really like this one. I think the splashes there are perfect as well. And then I got to the Three of Cups, and it was otters. And it made me really happy because Three of Cups was my card at the time that I bought this. It was showing up for me all the time. A friend and I have a thing where we call each other our otters. We've been doing that for, I don't know, 15 years. And so it was one of those things I was like, oh, I needed this deck at the time. Unfortunately, I haven't really played with it much, and I really should have, but hoping to change that. Four of Cups there, an octopus, another woman with an animal head for the Five of Cups, a pair of mermaids for the 6, another octopus for the 7, another mermaid for 8. So we're sticking with water until we get to the 9 of Cups. We have a bear with honey, and I'm not sure why. So for the 10, we're back to the water. Pair of seahorses, the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King is another octopus as well. So those are the water. I find it interesting that one of them is a bear with no water imagery in it. So, but the rest still hold pretty true. So we'll go into the swords. So starting with the Ace of Swords, put him up there. The Two of Swords, I really like this imagery for wanting to avoid making a decision. It's an ostrich sticking its head in the sand. So far we're birds, which is interesting. So like she did a lot of fish and aquatic animals for the water. Now we're on the swords, the air, so we're getting a lot of birds. When I showed this to a friend of mine, she said it was one of the most, like, it was a really powerful Three of Swords for her. And I agree. I think it's one of the most, like, powerful images I've seen. It reminds me a bit of the Crane Wife song by the Decemberists, which I highly recommend checking out. But I really like this one. The Four of Swords. Here's the 5. The 6. So we're still on birds. 7. The 8. And then for the 9, we randomly have a mouse. So birds all the way up for 8, and then a mouse. Not sure why. For 10, we're back to birds. Page. The Knight. I really like this Queen as well. And I also really like the King with the pelican there. So again, same thing. A whole bunch of birds and one that doesn't fit. And I'll be honest, I haven't read the book to know why, because I kind of forgot about this until just now. Okay, so we'll go into the wands next. So a little pangolin for the ace. So I thought when I first looked at the wands, I was like, okay, so we're going to be with mammals. But we're not, because the next one's a frog. So for the Two of Wands, the 3 is an iguana. It always reminds me of kind of like Mr. Toad. Is it Mr. Toad? I think that's what it is. But it's, yeah, an iguana in a suit. The 4 is another frog. 5 of Wands. 6 is a chameleon. 7 is a frog. And then the 8 is a pair of, looks like hounds. So I'm not sure. The 9 is a frog. The 10 is a rodent of some sort. Maybe a harvest mouse is what it's supposed to be, but I'm not sure. Frog for the page. A flower-headed woman riding a fox for the knight. A cat-headed woman for the queen. And the king is one that I really like. And it's a tiger. And I want to show you this one up close, I think, because I really like the artwork. And I should have done that with some of the cups that are my favorite, but I just really like the colors on this tiger, and I think it's important to kind of show them off here because they're very bright, vibrant compared to some of the other cards. So I just really like how he stands out. And I like the floating crowns imagery. Let's go back. Alright, so there's those. And we'll go to the pentacles. So now we're on earth imagery. So I'm not sure, because she kind of started with being like, okay, fish for the water with the exception of a couple, birds for the air with the exception of a couple. I would have thought like lizards for fire, like lizards, amphibians would have made sense because you have like the salamander myths of like salamanders coming from fire. And so it could have been kind of cool to go with lizards for the fire and then mammals for the earth, but it didn't really stick that way. So, but I'll show you what we've got here. So Ace of Pentacles, and up a bit. And this one's like one of the few purple. I think there's not very many purple, so this one stands out a lot, and like I said, I haven't really looked into a whole lot of this book to see why. The 2, I do really like the 3 a lot. I think this is a really good one. 4, the 5, 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, another animal-headed, bare-chested woman, the 10, the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. So that's the Otherkin Tarot. I am going to do a quick deck interview and ask it some questions and do one of my little spreads that I like to do. And so I'm going to shuffle, and then as I lay the cards out, I'll tell you what I decided to ask it and how we're going to interview this deck. Okay, so I've shuffled and I've asked likes, dislikes, what do you want to teach, and what topics should be avoided. So I find these to be really useful when you have multiple decks on the go. If you keep a reference, then you can go, okay, this is the situation I'm in. If you're not sure which of your decks to use, or if you don't have one that you gravitate towards most often, it can be kind of nice to like pick one based on the situation. So like I have a friend that'll ask me for a reading and I'm like, do you want a no nonsense, girl get your shit together reading, or do you want something that's going to be like, hey, everything's going to be okay, let's figure this out and move forward? Or, you know, whatever my other ones are. And then when they tell me, I'll pick that one because I don't know what kind of state of mind they're in when they ask me necessarily. I can go with my intuition, but I might not be picking up things correctly as how they're feeling or what they're desiring or why they're asking me for a reading. So I like to kind of have a reference of that. For this little interview, I'm going to actually just be reusing the book rather than basing on my own knowledge and the RWS interpretations, because like I said, some of these images don't make sense to me, and so I think this will be a good way to like figure out what the author was intending, get an idea of like how this is working and what's going on, and it can kind of give you an idea of whether or not this is going to be a deck that you'd like. So start off with likes. So we have the 5 of Cups. So the 5 of Cups, according to this book, these are going to be your standard RWS, I'm sure. Grief, despair, negative thinking, loss, pessimism versus optimism. So I'm not going to read the whole passage. It's quite long, but I'll give you the brief overview and a couple of sentences. So they say the 5 of Cups indicates a need to shift our focus towards the positive and put our efforts into changing those things we have power over instead of obsessing about loss, difficulty, or pain. So the artist has interpreted it as the card signifies this, so that it's telling you to move away from that. That's why you would pull that card. So they say the image on this card is a mer woman crying over 2 broken eggs. 2 of the eggs are broken while 3 are still standing. Her focus is on grief and loss instead of remembering that there are still eggs and there are still things in life to celebrate, and indeed places where her energy is desperately needed. While loss and grief are part of life, this card is a reminder of how vital our outlook is and how much it shapes our world. In the Thoth Tarot, this card is called the Lord of Disappointment. And if it is in future position in a reading, it can indicate that you should prepare for some disagreement or disappointment or disillusionment. So I'm interpreting that as when I ask this deck what it likes, and it says this. Based on the author's interpretation, I'm going to say that, to me, my understanding is that this deck likes to shift your mindset, get you out of negative thinking. So if you're not feeling so good and you're just like kind of like, oh, I'm feeling in a funk and something needs to change, what do I need to do? That might be time to pick up this deck because it's going to have some insight for you. That's how I'm reading it. So that could definitely be something here. And then this card tends to appear more frequently in love or relationship readings. So it could be that this deck likes love or relationship. And then it talks about the reverse. Sometimes this card just speaks to you about your perspective. So it could be that this deck likes perspective. So I did say a shift in perspective, changing of focus. So that's the things that this deck likes to have you do is to shift your focus, shift your perspective, look at the bigger picture, not just the immediate things in front of you. So that's good to know. So then I asked for the dislikes. So what topics did we not want to talk about? And we got the Magician. So that's interesting to me, that it wouldn't want to talk about those types of things. So I have some ideas in my head about how I would interpret that. But like I said, I'm just going with the book right now. So we're only going to go to there. So one of the most powerful and magical cards in this deck, the Magician, has dominion over all of the elements. She's depicted here as a female figure with antlers, but the Magician transcends gender and corporeal form, a being of power and connection and glamour. Interesting. A true card of powerful beginnings. This is one of the best omens you can see at the start of a new venture or relationship. Okay, so that's what stood out to me in this. How can you channel the power of the universe towards your goals? So this card is not a how to get to your goals deck. This is not a should I take that new job deck. This is not a should I have this new relationship deck. Should I move across the country deck. This deck, so as much as we said, like, look at the bigger picture for the Five of Cups, I think those are maybe too big of pictures. So it's like, not necessarily what's exactly in front of you, but not what's 5 miles out. Let's see here. There are times in life when everything seems to be on your side, and that's when the Magician is in your house and you're allowing that power to flow. Okay, so when things aren't going for you. So that goes along with the first one. So the Magician indicates, according to this author, when things are going for you. They're going in your direction. You're in the power. You have everything. You've got this. That's not when you want to use this deck. This deck is not going to reaffirm that for you. This deck wants to help you when things don't quite feel right and you need to shift into something better. So that kind of goes along together with those two. So take that as you will. And then let's shift into, what did I say? Things that you want to teach. So what is this deck here to teach beyond just perspective shifting, right? The Four of Cups. Interesting. Okay. There's the 7. The Four of Cups does not come up often for me, so this is interesting. So the keywords: isolation, negativity, denial, self-indulgence, moodiness, lack of vision, turning inward, and depression. To me already, this goes along with the Five of Cups. So this is direct. Five of Cups is shifting your perspective from a pessimistic view to something more optimistic. The Four of Cups is depression. It's isolation. It's looking at things negative in a negative light. So, here's what they say. In the Otherkin deck, the Four of Cups is pictured as an octopus. The octopus has 8 arms, a symbol of the industry this creature is capable of, but each of these arms is curled upon itself, an indication that the octopus is not participating in the world. The human equivalent would be sitting on your hands or standing with your arms crossed. I love to stand with my arms crossed, and that has nothing to do with me closing myself off. That just has to do with it's how I don't know what to do with my hands. So I cross my arms or I put them in my pockets. So, anyway, moving on. Drawing. In this drawing, also hiding under a lily pad and has its eyes tightly shut. It's hiding away, not engaging with the world and not seeing what's going on. In a professional, financial, or work reading, this card can appear when the querent is discouraged, bored, or feels unseen in their current situation. So like I said, it goes along with the first card. So like we said, that the Magician indicates the card doesn't want to talk about new things or when things are going your way. It wants to talk about things that already exist and maybe you're not going quite your way. Four of Cups may indicate disengaged, apathetic, or bored. So those do, to me, kind of go along a little bit with being pessimistic. So that goes along. So it wants to help you get out of those situations, and I'm gonna interpret this as a way to teach you how to avoid them in the future. So it's gonna be kind of a teaching deck, which is interesting. So topics that we do not discuss. Completely avoid anything to do with the Queen of Pentacles. That's interesting. All right, Pentacles. They're always at the end. Queen of Pentacles. Productivity, fertility, wealth, success, nurturing, home, happiness, and prosperity. So like I said, we do not talk when things are going good. The Queen of Pentacles is a kind and generous spirit. Everything good about motherhood is represented in this card. We don't talk about motherhood. We don't talk about it here, apparently. Grounded, complex, nurturing, and fully self-developed. Here is the model of leadership that celebrates and brings out the best in others. Strongly related to reproduction and fertility, this card is a wonderful omen for anyone looking to expand and grow. To me, that goes along pretty closely with her description of the Magician. And I definitely see the two connected together. I mean, the questions were fairly similar questions, so I kind of like to do that and ask similar questions in a slightly different way so that we can get the truthful answer. You know, sometimes you'll take quizzes for like employment and they'll ask you the same question 6 different ways so that they can see if you're lying on any of the questions. Kind of like to do that with my tarot interviews, which is why those questions are very closely related and very similar, because then if the deck is conflicted, has conflicting messages, or is straight up lying to me, I can tell. These cards are closely enough related that this deck is a pretty honest deck, in my mind. That's what I'm getting out of this. It's honest, it wants to help you grow, it's not there to boost your ego, kiss your ass, or anything like that. This deck is here to tell you, hey, come on, let's switch it up, you're fine, pull yourself together, let's move on, everything's okay. Or will be, or it's not, and we're gonna do it anyway. That's kind of what I'm getting from these cards. So that's what I'm going to take from this. Let me know if you have something different, but let's take a quick look at the bottom card here. And I like to go, is there anything else that I missed? And we have the Empress. So since there's no context in, is there anything I missed? This could be a topic we don't want to discuss, or a topic we do want to discuss, or maybe a topic that's like, oh, we'll get to it when we get to it. So, I keep skipping the Empress. She's not my favorite card in any deck, really. For the same reason the Queen of Pentacles is not really my favorite card. Matriarchy, power, strength, fertility, creativity, passion, abundance, children, motherhood, and prosperity. So I'm going to take this as just, like, I mean, obviously I was going to take it as doubling down, because it's so similar to the Queen of Pentacles. The Empress is the ultimate feminine archetype, pictured in this deck as a half human, half bear, an animal often associated with the fierceness of a mother protecting her cubs. She is powerful. She is power and sexuality ruled by Venus. The Empress is both huntress and homemaker. So, I mean, it could be, we're not going to talk about this side of femininity. We're not going to talk about motherhood. We're not going to talk about nurturing. But maybe we're going to talk about the other sides of femininity, of dealing with societal pressures that come with it, dealing with the negative feelings that you might have associated with it if you're someone. Or it could be any other reason. So, I mean, how would you interpret the Empress along with these other ones? So I hope you liked my little quick review of the Otherkin, or meeting the Otherkin. And thanks for coming along with me. I'm still on the fence. I really love some of the imagery, but the other ones I just don't know. And I was telling my friend the other day, maybe I just want to make like a chaos deck where I just take all my favorite cards from each of my decks and throw them in together. And I think maybe that's something I'll do is once we go through all my other ones, I'll pull out my favorite like tower cards, because I love the tower, and I'll talk about why I love the tower and show you my favorite ones, and maybe I'll pull up some images of some of my favorite ones from decks that I don't have. But anyway, so hoping to do more of these. I really like doing these. I've got a lot of decks to get through, as you saw in the beginning. Which one should I do next? I don't know. Maybe we'll do the Tarot of the Divine. I haven't opened this one yet. I was hoping to open it on screen. So this would be an entire, like, not entire because I've seen it online a lot, but this would be like a blind opening almost. So anyway, got that one. I've got a few other ones that I have played with that I like, a couple that I'm not so sure about, and I'd love to talk to you about. So thank you all for chilling, listening to my long outro as I ramble on, and I hope you all have a great day.